Hey y'all, what's up everybody? Welcome to Accountability with Nicole. I'm so excited to have all of you guys here. Today we're going to have a special guest on, my friend Boston from TikTok. I've known him before TikTok. We know each other from the recovery community on Facebook, but he's been over on TikTok, and we got to talking and decided to get together and do a live stream today about meth and his experience with methamphetamine. Y'all know methamphetamine was my drug of choice. If I had to choose between all the drugs I was addicted to and you lined them up in front of me, meth was my first love. So I'm really excited to have him on. What I'm going to do before I bring him on is I got to make sure that I get this video, because we are live streaming on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. So let me just get this video shared over on Facebook, and then we can bring him on and he can start sharing with us about how he got into his addiction, and then what he's doing today to stay sober and all the good things. So y'all just bear with me. What's everybody up to? This is what y'all can do for me. You guys can help me share the video. Okay. You can let me know if you're sober and in recovery too. You can tell me where you're from, and that's what we can do while I am sharing this video out all over Facebook. Hey, Brandon. Hey, Nick. Hey, Myco Media Pro. What's up? I'm glad you guys are here. This should be entertaining tonight. Boston's super outgoing like I am, so he'll keep y'all entertained, I'm for sure. You know what I mean? Okay, hold on just one more second. I just want to make sure I share it to all the groups that I'm a part of. You know what I mean? Okay, I think I did a good job. Yeah, okay. Hey, everybody. Hey, Christy, what's up? Hey, Heather, thanks for being here. Thanks, everybody, for being here, for real. I am going to delete this comment on Facebook, put the right link to our YouTube channel, and then I will bring Boston on. I have to figure out how to change. I have the link. It pops up automatically on Facebook and tells you where to come for YouTube, but my channel's different now, so I need to figure out how to change that back to now, but that's okay. We'll figure that out later. YouTube. Okay. Boom. There we go. Okay, let's do this. Let me go tell Nate to be quiet, and then let's do this. Hey, Nate. Keep your voice down, okay? Because I'm doing a show. Love you. Okay, let's do this. What's up, man?
Hey, 2%ers stand up. Nicole, thank you. I am so full of gratitude for you having me on tonight. Thank you so much.
Oh, man, you're welcome. I'm excited to hear your story. So we both have a lot of experience with meth addiction. And before we get into like talking about all the crazy stuff that we've been through, what I would like for you to do is share with us, like, you know, not like exactly how you would do an AA or NA, but like share with us how it was when you were a kid growing up, what it was like, what made you get into using drugs, and then share with us what it was like when you were in active addiction, and we can like kind of compare stories. Share with us what it was like, how you decided to write a book, right. You know, like what all that entailed. Just, I want you to take over the show, and if I have any questions, I'll just jump in and ask you, but I really want you to share with us all about your story, how you got into addiction, and what your life is like now. Okay?
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I'm going to give the abridged version because the book is like 716 pages. So there's a lot of detail. Basically, I grew up in an alcoholic home. There was childhood trauma. And by the time I was 14 years old, it started with a little bit of weed when I was about 13. But by the time I was 14, for my first drink, I was an alcoholic. I was an everyday vodka drinker in 9th grade. You know, so it was, I started seeing things in my life start to disappear, like sports, school. I basically stopped paying attention in school when I was in 6th grade. That's really where my education stopped. And then I was really sick in the early parts of high school. I was just a full-blown alcoholic. I started doing hard drugs right around the same time. I just dove head on into addiction right away, and it continued for years and years and years. I mean, I did a 25-year life sentence in the dungeon of addiction, but, it progressed through my 20s. My weight ballooned. I struggled with weight. I mean, my whole life too, because the alcohol was killing me in every
Yeah.
sense of the word. I mean, I was consuming, I put pen to paper one time, sometimes 10,000 calories per day on a regular basis with the alcohol, the food, and everything else I was doing, smoking a pack of cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
So I ended up, I was a businessman in South Texas. I was in the vacation rental industry at one time. And, I was having some success, but at the same time, I'm a complete alcoholic. And I was just starting to get back into hard drugs. I was starting to experiment with meth. It's a long story, but it all fell down around this
Hey,
time.
can I ask you this? Did you find that because you were doing alcohol, that like people were more accepting of that, of the alcohol drinking? You obviously were doing stuff, you were being successful, you were having a business, and people probably that you did business with drank too. So did you find that it was more acceptable for you to be drinking and stuff like that?
I knew all the builders in town. I would, have business meetings with the mayor sometimes. I mean, it was like, it was totally accepted. Not only that, like I would get pulled over. I mean, probably 7 or 8 occasions in this small beach community, but I made the town so much money in tax revenue. The police would let me go. I mean, they would pull me over. I would be 20 beers in and they would drop me off at home or have my ex-wife come get me. It totally looked the other way and I was killing myself. I brought a picture of that time frame.
Yeah, show it.
This was me in 2016.
Oh, wow.
I was 382 pounds. That was me at the Snoop Dogg concert. I think that was like 2015 area in Corpus Christi, Texas.
And both of your parents drank alcohol, and so you grew up seeing them drinking alcohol. And so it was kind of like, just like, well, my mom and dad are drinking, so I'm going to drink too.
And
right?
I went through a lot of childhood trauma. I went through a lot of it. I actually don't touch on that part too much in the book. It kind of like just picked up at my first joint. But I did suffer
What kind of
a lot
traumatic things did you experience as a child?
It was violence. It was like child abuse, like violence and other things too. I mean, there was some sexual abuse. There was things that I went through. Nothing with my family with that, but it was still traumatic. Yeah, and there was a lot of emotional abuse I endured too. So by the time, I remember my first drink, I took one sip of vodka. I was 14. It was the summer going from 8 to 9. And I remember thinking, and I put this in this book, I remember thinking in my head to myself, that's what I'm talking about. I want to feel like this the rest of my life.
Yeah. The relief. It was like automatic relief. Like your body went like this.
I could breathe. And I said, this is that pressure valve opening. And then you think you become more interesting, funnier. People like you more. You make more friends. And then I put this in the book too. I went to the first Freedom Rally in 1996 where marijuana was illegal in Massachusetts then. And I put in the book, I remember, I saw an eclectic group of people that would never hang out together unless drugs were involved. Like it really brought everyone together. Jocks, goths, old men, lawyers, doctors, like everyone was getting high and it was all under the banner of marijuana. And I saw the collectiveness and the togetherness that drugs and alcohol brought, and I loved it.
I feel the same way. I didn't go to any rallies like that, but I felt the same way when I first started drinking alcohol and abusing drugs. Like I felt like I had found my people, and these were the kind of, like, everybody understood me and I could be myself. And I felt like, just like you said, I felt like alcohol and I felt like methamphetamine. I felt like the drugs that I did made me better than I was without those drugs. I felt more confident when I took drugs.
And then I had major experiences first, and I have to say this because this is part of the story. Meth was my romance. I loved the up of that drug, the high feeling, the euphoria of meth. But it began when I started abusing terribly Ritalin and Adderall when I was in high school. Prescription methamphetamines is what I call them. Some people need them, but if you put that stuff in a spoon and submit, you're talking a taste test of Coke and Pepsi. For me, it was almost the same high. you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, amphetamine salt, and I mean, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Were you prescribed amphetamines because of an ADHD diagnosis, or were you buying them off the street at a young age?
I was getting them from other students at school. I just saw a statistic: 1 in 4 kids in public schools right now today are abusing somebody else's prescription pills.
Listen to this. Listen to this. In my son's 3rd grade class, 17 out of 25 kids were on Adderall or Vyvanse.
Wow, that's crazy.
Prescribed.
Wow. I'm going to tell you about this movie I just shot in Florida last month that has to do with Vyvanse and Ritalin. I'll talk about that later, but it is an absolute Russian roulette game if you abuse those drugs.
Tell us how you got on methamphetamine, okay? So you were drunk.
My first experience with it was I was gonna be an undercover narcotics agent at one time. I went to the military.
What?
I got it. I go, I'm gonna change. This is like right after high school. I was 18. I said, I'm gonna be an undercover Boston Police Department officer. I'm gonna be an undercover detective. That's what I wanted to do. So I started training, go to the military. Long story short, the last minute, I said, I'm not going to go. I'm going to go to Vegas instead, and I'm going to be a stand-up comedian. And 2 weeks after I got there, like I did the ASVAB, I qualified military police. I was ready to go to boot camp, and at the last second, I decided to go to Las Vegas, and I went to go chase this crazy dream at the last minute. And then I went out there. That was the first time I smoked meth, and wow, it was strong back then out there. That was like
back
the wiggle pain.
Back in the day, y'all, people that do drugs today don't even know what real methamphetamine is. I don't know.
You lose 10 pounds in 3 days and you be up the whole time.
I don't know what people are using nowadays. I know that me and my husband, when I met my husband, it was like around 2000, mid 2000s when it all switched and it turned into crystal ice, like ice. Because I don't know, you know what I'm talking about. The kind of methamphetamine that I was doing in 98, 99 was methamphetamine that they manufactured in a like trailer or a lab that was made out of like red. Oh my God, did my freaking thing die?
They call it home cooking, shake and bake.
Yes. Yeah. And it wasn't the shake and bake, but it was where they do it at the house, and it's like made out of red phosphorus and all kinds of different like ingredients.
Red phosphorus is made with burnt bones. I just want everybody to know that little tidbit.
What does that mean? Tell us what that means, burnt bones. Explain.
Like half of the people watching this as we get in this conversation, there's a very spiritual side to this story, and it rides the fence of mental health and spirituality and God and the devil and everything else. And I mean, a lot of people believe that methamphetamines are pharmakia, that the red phosphorus is made by burning bones. Part of the process. They think it's a voodoo drug. And I mean, it makes sense. So, I mean, Hitler, let's go back to the poisonous roots of meth. There's a book called Blitz. It's all historically accurate. It's a book by a German author who wrote this tell-all factual book about the Third Reich and drugs. And Hitler was getting vitamin shots by his personal doctor. Really, it was a drug called Pervitin. It's really methamphetamines. He gets obsessed with finding the Holy Grail. That's where you have the movie with Indiana Jones. That he was obsessed with finding the spear that pierced Jesus Christ's side. And that stuff was all based in reality. Hitler was obsessed with the occult. The whole country is now given Pervitin as a pep drug. I mean, this is all in the book. It sounds like something.
I wish I was alive back in those days. I would have loved to have me some Pervitin, baby.
They were giving it to the butcher down the street, the actress. They were giving it to kids. They actually commissioned a chocolate factory to make it and put it in chocolates. The whole country, all the soldiers were taking it like vitamins. They fell under the spell of this drug, and the greatest atrocities the world has ever seen took place under the influence of methamphetamines. The whole country. Yeah. So there is. Half the people watching this, because we do a lot of videos about this topic, are going to say meth is a gateway to the devil. And then the other half is going to say that it's mental health. But I'm here to tell you, it is a little bit of both, from my experience.
I believe it's a little bit of both, absolutely 100%. Because when I would go into psychosis from lack of sleep, that's why I would experience psychosis. It really wasn't from the methamphetamine. It was from me not sleeping for days. But in between reality and psychosis, I call it like, you know how they tell you that you get stuck between heaven and hell?
Yes.
purgatory or whatever. That's what it was like in between reality and being awake. You're in this like other dimension where like things that can't when you're awake are happening though, and you're seeing it, and it's so real. And there's the fact of the hallucinations being so real and psychosis being so real. It's so scary because even to this day, I think back to the experiences I had, and I question my own sanity because I'm like, well, I saw it with my own eyes, like it was how real it was.
Right, and we're gonna go down that road with this conversation. So I'm gonna skip a little bit forward just to get to it. My business career, I get beaten a bad business deal, marriage falls apart, kids and wife are gone, everything falls apart, and I decide I'm gonna go on this. I just started getting into meth heavy. Like I just started snorting it. So it was like becoming a more regular thing. I detail it in this book. And I made a decision at one point. I am going to do a slow 2-year suicide in the underworld of crystal methamphetamines in the city of Corpus Christi, Texas. I became a nighttime cab driver by chance, right? Just this is the spiritual part of the journey. Like I rolled through the neon slime of a city that is called the Body of Christ in Spanish. Corpus Christi means the body of Christ. And I'm in this. I am this nerdy white dude who was driving a minivan, and all of a sudden I am thrust into this dark underworld. My clientele, because I'm now using the cab as a rolling felony to support my habit. It's in a chapter called "The Driver Stakes is High." Prostitutes, check cashers, money printers. I mean, everybody in the game, pimps, drug dealers. I mean, they were all my clientele. I was charging point for point plus half off the meter. I was running hard 24 hours a day. I start driving my personal vehicle. I become a personal chauffeur for one of the most feared female drug dealers in that city at the time. My life went from 0 to 100 in a matter of a split second because I want people to know this. This was a suicide attempt. I've lived through 5 major ones in my life, but the greatest one was the one where I said, I'm going to kill myself with drugs and I'm going to have a good time doing it. I was a full-time sex and pornography addict, a full-time methamphetamine addict, and it became something. It went from that to the pipe. That was on the pipe, and then I started getting on that needle, and then everything started to spiral. And I was buying an 8-ball of methamphetamines every day. Now, I wouldn't use it all myself, obviously. That's enough to keep you up for a week. I was buying 3.5 grams per day, but I mean, we had some parties. And it got really out of control. And I want to show this picture. This is my last night as a cab driver. This is the one from real life. I just flew to Texas. I was there like a few days ago. This business is closed. But this was the night. I was not crazy. I was still working. Okay? This is a picture from an accident that I had in this taxi. Okay? And I want to point right here. Okay? In the digital photo of that. So I was going 70 miles an hour and I fell asleep. I'd been up for like 5 days. And I was working way too much, if you know what I mean. And I fell asleep and I crashed and hit this sign in front of the South Texas Christian Sleep Study Center. And
the Christian Sleep Study Center. What
and if you zoom into the digital copy of that photo, you can clearly see that's what the business was called. God dropped literally a sign onto my head to tell me to take my foot off the gas, and I would not listen. I had dope in the car. They found weed in my sock. I sawed all 5 ribs completely in half. My left heel was completely crushed underneath the seat. I was driving a 2009 Ford Crown Victoria Police Interceptor model. It was an old cop car turned cab taxi. That's the only reason I'm alive. The front seat, the engine was in the front seat. It was burning. And they found the weed, they threw it in the bushes, and then the EMTs gave me the dope that I had back in my bank bag and threw it at my chest, and I walked out of the hospital after pulling the IVs out before the test results even came back. And I mean, that was a near fatal car accident. I walked away without even a speeding ticket, because
you're so fortunate, for real. Because I mean, what could have happened is you could have gotten in trouble for trafficking, having all those drugs on you, and intent to sell and all that.
I actually only had like a 30 piece with me that night. I was going to score, but I mean, in Texas, that might as well be an ounce. I mean, in
I mean,
Texas.
look what happened to me. I got busted with fucking residue in a syringe and still had to end up going to prison, you know?
Yeah, it's like that song "Dust in a Baggie." I mean, you can go to life for that in those states, and people don't realize that. It's like, I mean, I remember I wouldn't even let you have a half a joint in my minivan at one time, and then I remember having a duffel bag full of methamphetamine. That's a life sentence. I mean, I remember somebody else had it in my car, but it wouldn't have mattered. I mean, I would have done life for that. The drugs make you so insane that you just don't care. You're desensitized. The game is the devil's carnival. It's a merry-go-round that we can't get off. And you have to detox from that lifestyle just as much as the drug. You know?
Oh, for sure. What
we
do you
start
think
soaking it up.
okay, so I want to talk about, because this is a big subject with methamphetamine. A lot of people, especially men that use methamphetamine, is the addiction to porn and addiction to sex.
Come on,
and
man.
I mean, I experienced not so much an addiction to that because I was a woman, you know, but I had a heightened sex drive because I was high on methamphetamine all the time, you know. And so what is it that you think causes you? Is it because you are, you know, because of the methamphetamine makes you feel that way? Like, explain to us why you became addicted to porn and sex at that time in your addiction.
And that's all detailed in the book too. I mean, if you want my personal opinion, I mean, my spiritual beliefs, and just because of my experience with it, I believe that when you mess with methamphetamines, you're opening the gates. You're opening a gateway to hell that most people could never imagine. I mean, I've seen things in that lifestyle. If John and Jane from Main Street knew what took place in the shadows of their lily white communities, these people would never leave their house. Every apartment community, all the big mansions down to the hood, the crime rate is everywhere. The crime wave is everywhere. And I mean, I walked in, there's 6 foot tall statues of Santa Muerta. I was down near the Mexican border. There's card readers, divinators. I believe there's a very spiritual connection to the meth game and people who deal methamphetamine. There's a story where they were blessing it with a black mass before sending it all over the city. I believe that was letting some things in, and it just, I mean, those
like
sexual
black magic,
demons,
like the cartel or something doing
the
it.
cartel.
Tell me about that.
So, well, that's a real thing south of the border. That's called narcocultura. Okay, they bless all these big bricks of methamphetamine, the 200 kilo batches they're sending. They bless that before it comes over. That's a real thing. Narcocultura, you can look it up. That's a real thing. But it was happening on the street level with the gangs that were running it in that city. I heard stories and rumblings of it. You know, there's people who do sacrifices in their backyards of animals. I mean, there's covens of witches. I mean, this stuff's all in the book. And that's why I exposed the meth game like
and
nobody else
just so
ever
you know,
done.
I have the link here in the comment section to anybody that wants to buy this book. Like, the more you talk about it, the more I'm going to go on Amazon and just fucking get it, because I'm like really interested to want to read more about, because I'm going to be honest with you. Like, all I know is, like, from my own personal experience, the spiritual warfare that I went through being addicted to methamphetamine was, you know, it was tough. That was the hardest drug for me to get off of. Opioids, fuck them. Cocaine, fuck it. Crack, fuck it. Benzos, fuck it. Like, I kept going back to methamphetamine. It had such a strong pull on my life, you know?
Only 2% of us get to stay clean off of it. It's not called the devil's drug by mistake, okay? Like, the back of the book, in the description, it says, the meth games where the sex, drugs, and the supernatural reign, man. I mean, I knew some strange cats out there. I was running side by side with a lot of very spiritually strange people who believed in the Lord, people that believed in the devil, people that were reading cards that tell the future. I mean, it's all out there. This stuff is very real. So half the people in these comments of this video are going to say it's all BS. People are just, they need to go to sleep, whatever. Half the people are going to say that, and half the people are going to say, man, I met the devil. Man, I worked for the devil. Man, I had to get out of that life. So, like, I snowballed. That accident was before the psychosis, but I thought I had a head injury at first. I started having, like, these signs flashing in my head. One of them was, like, find the others, and then I had this other one that's at the big event. It was a crazy experience. And then everything really started to fall apart. That night, that accident was the beginning of a major spiritual journey for me. And then I started going into psychosis slowly. Med psychosis for me, and I hear a lot of people with a similar story, was like a snowball cascading down a mountainside. So I started to have these out there ideas first, right? I mean, you hear people speaking in these twisted, coded languages. You ever had that?
Have I ever had that? Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? Like, there was this guy that I hung out with, and he would literally, everything that was happening to us, we were either being followed, there was somebody watching us, there was people after us, the devil was after, and he would talk in like riddles to me, and I would be trying to follow him, but then I would just lose my way. But then once I started getting higher and more paranoid, we would be able to talk to each other back and forth in this like, I can't say coded language, but it was both of us in our paranoia relating to each other and connecting
We're on the
to
same
each other
wavelength
through that. Yes.
Right. And so that coded language, believe it or not, comes from military training. And some people brought it into the game, and it's used to torture and harass people. You'll hear gang stalking stuff. We made tons of videos on that. That's a huge.
I've seen Jamie Tall talk about gang stalking. Please explain to me, because I don't think I experienced gang stalking. Please explain to me what gang stalking is.
You know, it happens. I mean, a lot of people say it's the government. It happens in the meth world. I really think it's people that make enemies. I mean, this is the meth game, period. People take this so passionately too. You'll get a million people. It's not just for drug addicts. All I can talk about is what I saw. I think that if you cross the wrong person and you make the wrong enemy, if you take somebody's girl, you beat somebody for money, and if you mess with the wrong bull, man, they start playing a psychological game of cat and mouse with you that will drive people insane. People have committed suicide from what I've heard. Everything. I mean, the cameras, I've seen stuff, it's in the book, about the hidden cameras that people put. Now, forget it. Those things are real, where they can put it in your room and watch you have sex.
Oh, they're doing it through people's baby cameras now.
Yes.
For real.
So now, I started having these ideas, and people started knowing things that they shouldn't know about me. Like, what kind of porn did I watch last night? What happened here and there? And then all of a sudden, my psychosis, I started to go deep into this paranoia. So really, it was the women, right? I had this crib that was in the country club estates, and I turned it. We called it the Trap in the Country Club. And, you know, I had just broken up with my girlfriend at the time, and it was after the accident, and she took off. And then all of a sudden, these women would start showing up at the house, or I'd be driving down the road, and I would pick one of them up. And I mean, every 3 days, a new girl would show up, and I wouldn't have no dope. They'd show up with dope, everything. And I'm like, I'm not that good looking, Nicole. I'm like, somebody's sending these people to me. And I'm like, but why? Are they trying to torture me? I would end up getting into these like schizo fights with these women, throw them out. You know, I've had a girl jump out of my car because I annoyed her so bad. I mean, it was just madness. But I thought someone was sending them to like get information or torture me or whatever. So that's where it started to snowball. So then in this book, there's a chapter called Movie Magic. Okay. This is where I took a turn into mental illness. It went beyond psychosis. Like this psychosis will turn into full-on mental illness, mentally disablement. Okay. And that's where I went. I started to believe things like I was in this hidden camera movie being filmed by satellites. And I thought it was like a Truman Show reboot. And I thought Jim Carrey was actually a producer in this movie. At first, I wouldn't speak about it to people. And then all of a sudden, like I started to do stand-up. Like I started, okay, I'm going to be part of this production. And I started to think, like, if this movie wraps, I'm going to be the biggest star in the world. And I'd be in Walmart doing stand-up.
I'm not laughing at you, man.
No,
I kind of am laughing.
It was scary. I mean, it was so sad, but so funny at the same time. And it was like, I mean, there were so many moments. I was banned from every business on the South Side Corpus. I mean, I'd be in a restaurant. I'd get up on the tables. There'd be 50, 60 people there. I'd start telling jokes, thinking I was on these hidden cameras. All the trap houses were wired with cameras. Everything became a performance.
How did people handle you coming around? Because listen, I was crazy like that too, and people didn't want me around no more because I was a liability, because I was freaking out in places where everybody's trying to get high and enjoy themselves, and here I am fucking looking out the window, screaming and yelling, thinking people are coming out of the vents, and they're like, this bitch is fucking crazy. Get her the fuck out of here. Like,
I mean, you were luckier than I was, because people actually played along with mine, which made it
Oh,
worse.
that's fucked up.
They actually fed into it. I mean, I had somebody that I knew from before move in to my house. My dad went missing. So during all this, I'm taking care of my father who had stage 4 spinal cancer. And I'm strung out. And I mean, it's so many people from around the world. This book's being read in 5 countries. So many people that will email me. My email's on the back. They email me and they tell me that they were crying. And it's like that chapter, Till the Wheels Fall Off. I was taking care of a sick person while I was completely mentally disabled. Nobody came to the rescue. And it was absolutely atrocious and horrible what I went through. And I learned a lot about life by watching that man die. He was my best friend. And but I was a junkie and I was strung out on the needle and I was in full psychosis living in this movie. And I had people show up from my past after 9 months of not seeing them, and they would move into my house, and there was a train of drug addicts all playing along with these delusions, which made it worse because they wanted a place to party for free. After my dad left, he disappeared, and he was really in hospice dying, and I missed his death. Nobody came and told me that because I was too crazy. So I'm in this movie. Everything is just, basically, they boarded the house up while I was in it. It was 110 degrees. And then after a while, I was so crazy that nobody could be around me. Not even the people who wanted, it got so bad, not even the people who wanted a free place to stay would come around.
Yeah.
And yeah, it became very sad. I was totally mentally disabled. I mean, I had a nighttime estate sale with twinkle lights in the trees and sold all the antique furniture out of my grandparents' house for pennies on the dollar, thinking it was part of the movie. I had a lemonade stand at 38 years old or 34 years old, whatever I was. It was like 34 years old. And yeah, and I was in competition with the Fitzpatrick twins down the street, and I got mad at them because they had a Tuesday lemonade stand the same day I did. You see, trying to earn money to get some dope. You know, that was all my reality, and it felt so real. And I mean, I thought I was seeing people in full Hollywood makeup. I started having full visual delusion, and it was. Then all of a sudden, one day, I called someone in my family. They told me my dad died, and something clicked, and it reached me, and I knew he had really passed. So I walked up the street. I passed out. There was needles everywhere. I was covered in self-inflicted knife wounds. The house was just to the studs. A $250,000 house down to the studs. Trash everywhere. I mean, it was one of the worst trap houses I've ever seen. And I woke up in a bathing suit. There was I was just covered in urine and blood. And I saw a knife and I grabbed it. And I walked around the block and I went into a fast food restaurant. And the months leading up to this, I was refused treatment twice. This book is a social commentary on the state of the drug treatment industry in this country, where everybody should get free help, in my opinion. Absolutely. I was being sent in and out of the mental hospital every 3 days. Nobody was helping me. I was a total danger to myself and others. And the systems collectively failed me, and they would just turn me back out into the street. So I went into this fast food restaurant, and I had this knife, and I had no shirt on. And I opened the door. I was 30 feet from the closest person. And I shouted in, and I said, "This is not a robbery. Everybody get up out of here." And they left, and I went and I poured me a Coke, and I got me a burger. It didn't even have cheese on it. And I sat down, took a bite of that burger, and I went peacefully. And the police almost shot me that night with a 12-gauge shotgun. That's in the book. And that was this picture. That was June 3rd, 2018. And that was my mugshot.
So the picture you showed us when you were overweight, you went from that to that. How long did it take you to using methamphetamine to go from over 300 pounds to where you were at in the last picture?
I actually lost most of this weight right before I got on drugs. I did it the right way. Good. And then I lost the rest. And then this was my mugshot. That arrest is on YouTube. So this is the thing. Methamphetamine psychosis is not something that goes away when you stop using drugs. If you're in that deep, if you're spun.
Oh, yeah, it can absolutely follow you into sobriety. And I've even known some people who have gotten sober and have been sober for over a year and still experiencing some forms of methamphetamine psychosis.
So I was in Nueces County Jail awaiting trial, and it was 156 years stacked. They charged me with aggravated armed robbery. That's 5 to
Wow.
99. They charged me with 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, all aggravated charges because it was a weapon in the commission of a felony. So that was those are 2 to 20 each times 3. I was facing all that, and I still thought I was in the movie. I'm in there performing. I'm thinking I'm on camera. I'm in the 4R gang unit, which is like no joke. You do not want to mess around in there. And it was like 23-hour-a-day lockdown. And I'm in the shower while they let us out singing Bump and Grind by R. Kelly, thinking I'm going to get a check for being a comedian. I mean, come on, man.
I can totally relate to what you're talking about, though, because I know what you mean by saying, like, I thought I was in a movie. I know what you are saying. Like, I experienced the same feeling of the realness of what our mind is telling us is actually happening. And
Correct.
when you get to that point where your mind is telling you that what's happening is actually happening, who's not going to tell you? And then when you have people around you like you had who are feeding into that delusion,
reaffirming
they're just amping it up that more and confirming that it's happening.
Exactly. Right. And I mean, they were doing it for their own gain. I mean, that was super evil what they were doing, because I was way out there and I trusted them. I thought they were my friends. So the night I went to jail, my best friends, they came down to my cell, the police, and they told me my 2 best friends, or my 1 best friend and her cousin at the time, were robbing my house. They saw me on the news and went and got whatever they could that was left. There was not
right.
Much
they knew that you were locked up, so they could go get free
they
whatever
knew
they
nobody was at that crib, so they went. And then so I'm in there for like 8.5 months, man. I'm awaiting trial. And I mean, I'm crazy the whole time. So this is where it takes like an awesome turn. I started, like, I was so crazy, I started reading the Bible in there because I thought they put cameras in my eyes. That's how crazy I was. I was like, they can see what I can see. And if I read something and learn something, they're going to open the doors and they're going to let me out. There were some sad moments there. I mean, really dangerous stuff that could have happened. And I talk about all that in the book. But then I ended up getting the number 2 pay attorney as a public defender in the whole city. My defense would have cost $50,000. And I didn't even know it at the time. He looked like Martin Scorsese. I went back to the pod. I told these guys who my attorney was when they asked. And they thought, I mean, they might as well have been Johnny Cochran. I didn't even know who this guy was. So they rejected my insanity defense at first. And basically, they told me I'm looking at like 15 years. So I had a bench trial set up. It's my first felony arrest ever. Okay. My dad died 4 hours before this crime. My mom was in Myrtle Beach. She was alive at the time. Everybody abandoned me. Every one of my friends, they just fell off the face of the planet. But even family betrayed me. I got robbed for all my inheritance by certain people and things like that. It was just really sad. And 8.5 months in, I went to bed talking to the weatherman, thinking that we were having a conversation and he could hear me and I could hear him. And I woke up and I was completely healed like I am right now. And I went to that mirror in front of the sink, and I remember looking in the mirror, and I remember all of it hit me. The house got foreclosed. You're really getting a divorce. Your kids are gone. You're facing a lot of prison time. Your dad's really dead. And it all hit me in one shot. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't survive that traumatic shock. But after the healing, I would say it took me 6 months to determine what was fact and what was fiction. I'm sure you went through that.
Yeah.
Where you had to decipher what's reality from what was a delusion, right? Because it's so real. You're really seeing these things. You're really feeling these things. So I went to trial. I called my lawyer the night before. He said, I'm just flying through this. I asked him, I said, what are we looking at? Probation? It's my first felony. He said, we're looking at 15 years. I screamed in my towel. I went to court the next morning, and all I know is I walked up in there, and he said, we beat the case. And I was like, what do you mean? You told me 15 years the night before. And he starts telling me, he's like, last night I was on unrelated business. I was at the DA's office after hours, like 7, 8 o'clock at night. He had all my files for court the next morning. And glory to God, he presented this stuff. And the DA caseload switched that day by chance. And I got a new district attorney, and they let my insanity defense go through. And they got it signed into law the next morning. And I was found not guilty by reason of insanity, which is almost impossible to get off on insanity.
Hell yeah.
Well, 25% of people who get it, who actually apply for it, get it in front of the judge. and then 24% of the 1% get off on insanity. So less than a quarter of 1% of people who apply, felons, get off on insanity. Like Jeffrey Dahmer was denied insanity, and I got off on insanity. It was just like, it was a big mistake because drugs disqualify us as a recovery community. You can't be considered insane if you were on drugs. Like, they will comb your Facebook. They will interview your friends. And if you have drugs in your story, they will kick that out and you are going to prison, no matter how mentally ill you are from the drugs. And I think that that's a travesty in this country.
I believe that's fucked up. I believe people should be able to, because when you're doing meth, like we were doing meth, you're insane. You're not all, it's not, you're not there. It's not, I could not make decisions that were in my best interest when I was fucked up on methamphetamine. Everything was driven by meth.
Right. And we go to an animalistic level. We go to an animalistic level, and we're sick people. We're not bad people. We're just really mentally ill people on that drug. It doesn't kill you. Somebody didn't fill me in and say you don't die from meth. You go crazy. It's very hard.
Oh, you will lose your mind. It's very rare that I see anybody that I've never met anyone who overdosed from methamphetamine and died. Yeah. Have you?
Nope. I just heard you can overamp. That's it. And that's what I went. When I was putting 100 cc's of maple syrup in my arm, that's what I told myself. You can't OD.
And you would fall. This is what would happen to me when I would do that. I would do a shot and then I would fall asleep for probably I'm talking like snoring.
Yeah.
And then I would wake up and be like, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, there's crazy stories in this book. I did 100 and then I did 70 more 45 minutes later. And I guess I fell out and turned blue. And then I was dating this really crazy chick who claimed to be a healer. That story is wild. That's in the book. You got to
I got to read their book because it sounds fucking wild. And you can be so honest in a book. It's kind of hard to talk about some things like on YouTube or on Facebook because when we get too into it, then I mean, I talk about stuff pretty openly here, but like really talk about it in your book. And I have it linked in the comment section because I really do want people to go buy it. And then
I want to say this: if you're under a year, I would say just as a recommendation, do not buy it.
Do not do it.
Don't. I mean, it is super raw, super descriptive. Like, prisoners have to take breaks. Okay, like, it brings you into the trap house. You can feel the needle going in your arm. I'm sorry, but you can. It's very descriptive.
No, I love that. I'm not, listen to me. That's how I am when I share about my experiences. Right. Because I don't know how else to be than to tell you exactly what it was like. Because I would rather how bad it was than to think. And when I say how bad, when I first started using meth, it felt great. I loved getting high. Yeah. But what happened to me, and what happened to Boston is it feels great, but then all the bad things start coming. You start losing your damn mind. You start going into psychosis. You start hurting your family. You start hurting your friends. You become addicted to sex. I mean, like, I had so many different guys that I was sleeping with. I could have caught HIV. I could have caught, I have hepatitis C. I just got rid of that a year and a half ago.
I was using dirty needles right off the floor. I didn't even care at one point. I didn't even care. I was having sex with so many partners, and it was just like I didn't even care if I lived or died. And you know what? I didn't have any STDs. I didn't have any bloodborne disease. I went to so I had to live after the child.
You're real lucky because I caught hepatitis C. I'll take that back.
Your users get 70% of people get it.
Yeah, I caught hepatitis C, y'all. After all the years of being in active addiction, I didn't catch it until the last year. 2015 is when I caught hepatitis C. And I had been shooting up since like 2003 or something. Yeah. 12 years shooting up.
Well, he wanted to tell you don't go back.
Yeah. So he gave, I'll never forget it. I was desperate and I needed a rig. And my only friend that had one was this guy. And he said to me, Nicole, I've got hepatitis C. Yeah. And I said, man, it's all good. And I rinsed it out. I put bleach through it. And I thought that would get rid of it.
I just want a little Clorox through this thing and we'll be good. Like, that's how crazy you are. Yes, when you're on it, like your inhibitions, you just do not care. I mean, there's one spot in this. I left one. It was full of coagulated blood and I had to run. And I came back 24 hours later and I got that thing in my arm and it tasted like liver and onions in the back of my throat. And I didn't even care. You can die from that.
I believe it though. I've done the same thing. One time I had a syringe that got clogged. And so I got the lighter and I'm lighting it, trying to get it to run through.
Right. Yeah, it looks like a worm coming out the end, you know? I mean, that is complete demoralization. That's where it takes
That's
you.
insanity, dude.
Well,
That's desperate
after the trial, I went to Vernon, maximum security mental institution for the criminally insane in Vernon, Texas. It is the craziest place and environment you can imagine. It is the place that they put people that are too crazy for prison for the whole state of Texas. And I was there for 2.5 months. That's where Andrea Yates was, who drowned her 5 kids. That's like where all your top serial killers and the herders of women and children, serial rapists. I mean, that's who I was now in. And now you got to remember, I'm completely healed at this time. Then I went to San Antonio State Hospital. I'm around the craziest speech, ultra violence. I mean, sexual assaults, patient on patient crime is not prosecuted. You lose all your rights. The police will come up, take a report, and leave. Nothing happens.
Hold on a second. So because you got out for insanity, they made you go to the insane asylum?
Yes, for a safety evaluation before they put me back into society so that they don't get sued. I had to do, it usually takes between 3.5 to 5 years. So I'm in a state-run mental hospital for the criminally insane, and I'm completely sane. And it's in a chapter in this book called Dark Days, Asylum Nights. And I ended up like starting to become really smart. My brain started to really come back to me. And I was like Lex Luthor and Superman had a baby at one point. And I remember reading that client's rights handbook, and I figured out if I got my mom to take the camera out the cell phone, I could have one legally. Like I started really seeing a lot of sexual abuse and people in urine for 90 days and neglect and all kinds of violence. And I started a journal. And I remember this one nurse said, if you don't like what you see here, you write a letter and I'll take it up to the White House personally. And that was like where all the top brass were for the hospital. She was just telling me, if you don't like it, I'll deliver this letter. So I did. And I said, I am well educated. I'm here because I was on drugs. I have a cell phone inside. You can check my file. I have names, dates, and times and client information and all these incidents. And I'm going to take my journals to the local and state media as long as I'm in this hospital. And I became a champion for the people, a voice for the voiceless. I mean, people who were mad. And I took on an evil, corrupt state hospital system who gets $1,100 a day per patient. There is no doctor therapy. There is nothing to help people with mental illness in a state.
What happens to them in there? What do they do? Tell us, take us into a day in the mental, into a hospital like that.
And this book is a bird's eye view. That chapter could be its own movie. You get up in the morning, chow, Medline. They drug you. They lobotomize you with medication. I was on 9 while I was completely sane. They make money off of those pills. They make you docile and they put you in front of a TV until lunch. You eat chow. You go to the midline. They dose you again. You go to dinner. You go to the midline. They dose you again. 10 o'clock bed. And it's that day in, day out. You may be able to do arts and crafts. There's one AA meeting per week. And everybody, see, this is the thing. No one could have a cognitive conversation. I was the only sane person in there. The orderlies would tell me, they'd say, man, you shouldn't even be here, man. This is a big mistake. And they felt bad for me. But that all had.
I can imagine being somewhere like that and having to take all those meds, knowing that you don't need to take them. You know what I'm saying?
And I convinced them not to. I mean, I had erectile dysfunction from those pills. I walked into that office. I was like, this is the final straw, man. I'm like, that's it. I'm like, I ain't taking these anymore. I convinced the doctor to take me off. I was like one of the only people in San Antonio State Hospital history to come off those meds. And then the ball started rolling. They got that letter and they started moving me around. And I thought it was out of retaliation, but in reality, somebody made a call to let me go. And they moved me, and everywhere they moved me, I didn't know I was free yet. Everywhere they moved me, something would pop off. God made something happen. I uncovered a scandal of patient-on-patient molestation where the people were like, they had the minds of an 8-year-old, and one of the victims had HIV, and they were spreading it around. The hospital covered it up. And I bribed one of the victims with candy to give me his sister's phone number. And I called her from the unit phone and told her what was going on. Big investigation kicked off. So then the final straw was my roommate escaped. His name was Christian, like Olafalabal or something, strange last name. But if you YouTube San Antonio State Hospital, I mean, I got receipts on all this from my real life. San Antonio State Hospital escape. The first story that's going to pop up is this big expose. My roommate escapes. I've got my cell phone, remember? So I message Ken's 5. I messaged Ken's 5. I said, do y'all want a story about an escaped mental patient? I mean, I had cojones the size of a gorilla. I was stepping through every door God had opened. He said, walk through, Boston. And just, he kept calling my name, and I would risk it all because they could have held me for 99 years. I was on a 99-year possible psych hold, and it was only until they said you're good to go that I could walk out. So I was risking my life and freedom every time I wrote one of these letters. People die in there, by the way. It happens all the time. People are drugged and they die.
I know. My sister had to go into
they'll be overdosed and they'll die in the restraint chair. It happens all the time.
Yeah, my sister had to go into a mental institution when she was younger, and they did the same thing, like you said, lobotomize her medically. That's what they did to my sister. And when we went to go see my sister, she had been there for 6 months. I remember my father started crying because it was not my sister. It was like not even, I say it, but she was like, there was no glow to her face. There was no personality anymore. It was like,
it drains the light right out of your eyes.
Yeah, It was so sad. And my dad said, we're getting her out of here. And he got her out of there that day, and she never went back. And then because of all the medicine they had put her on, her thyroid gland shut down. And so she gained like 100 pounds while she was in there because of all these medications they put her on that shut down.
Trazodone, those are the #1 prescribed medication. They burn your pancreas out faster than alcohol, and they're just pumping you full of this stuff. So that video, that San Antonio State Hospital escape, they ran this big story, and they came down to I was wiping the walls down for $7 a day, and I'm like, God, just get me out of here. It was the most. Now I'm like 300 pounds again because I'm eating Chinese food. You can like order out in there, and I'm just.
You look great.
Thank you.
Like 300 pounds. You don't look 300 pounds, Boston.
I know I was 300 when I was about to get out.
I was like, you don't look like that now.
Yeah, no, I'm almost 200. I'm like 220 now. And
you look great.
Yeah, and I'm dropping, but they let me out. I mean, they said our job is to get you out of here today. I was just way too big of a problem for them. And I had some more miracles, but bottom line is I walked out with no criminal record of any kind. But it all started with a half a joint, and then I found myself on meth type drugs and then on meth, and it led me to the mental institution for the criminally insane. And if you don't think it can happen to you, you're gravely mistaken. You don't know how your brain's going to react. Now, I'm just going to school real quick on what it is. A team of 20 doctors told me your brain pathways go in straight lines like laser beams. A wall goes up when you do too much meth and your brain reacts improperly. So your signals are bouncing around like laser beams and haywire. You're starting to go into delusion, see, audible, everything. And then what happened to me in jail when I got healed was my brain found a way to bounce the signals off one other wall and get to where they originally should be. But they said it's not if, it's when you go back into psychosis. If you do anything stronger than nicotine or caffeine, cocaine, methamphetamines, Adderall, any of those drugs, you will go back into psychosis, and chances are, because you were in so deep for so long, that you will not come out, and you'll spend the rest of your life in a state hospital. So, I mean, my liver failed, and my spleen was enlarged. I found out when they tested my blood, like all of that healed up. They couldn't explain it. I had this major second chance at life. And I started writing short stories and releasing them online. This is like right around the time I met you in 2020. And the response was so big. I was on like Chicago Hope Dealers, all those big sites at the time on Facebook. And I was releasing short stories. And the response was so overwhelming. I said, I'm going to do a full-length book. And I wrote this after my release when I was homeless and clean. I wrote the first chapter of this was written in an Oxford house. It was in a hotel in an Oxford house is where I wrote this book to start. And
how did you
I
get
finished
into writing it? Like, how did you get the motivation? And did you do it on a computer? Did you write it with your hands on paper? What?
I wrote it on my cell phone, and I was posting the short stories as like a kind of a therapy thing. And it was I didn't have the cloud, so it was like a way to keep record of it. I just posted it online in these recovery groups, and I wanted to see if it was any good. And like I said, I have a 6th grade education basically. And this book is 716 pages. I wrote it on January 1st of 2020 to July 1st of 2020. when all that was going on, that recovery stuff that we used to see.
Oh, God.
I was writing that book in the midst of all this, right? And I wrote it in 6 months to the day, and I never changed nothing until the final edit. It was like God gave me this book as a bridge between the junkie and Jesus. Forget the church, junkie and Jesus. Because that's what happened to me. I had jaw-dropping experiences with God while I was in psychosis that left me forever changed. That's just part of my story. And it's all in here, you know?
What I was going to say to you is I started writing a book. I'm not anywhere near finished, but I find it so awesome that you were able to do that in 7 months. To me, that's like really impressive because it's hard work to sit down and really like put all your thoughts onto paper, you know, from your mind to the paper. At least it is for me. It's harder for me because it's hard for me to convey how I want to write it. Do you know what I'm saying? I can tell it all day long, but writing it out is difficult for me. You know, it
came out of the ether and flowed through my fingers, and I wrote it. And I told everybody back then it was a hit. Everybody thought I was crazy. Hey, he's just a fat kid in his mama's basement making videos, you know.
Oh.
And I came from that place. And I have done multi millions in sales in my personal career. I win awards. I'm up for the most prestigious award in my business right now. I have a book that's being read in 5 countries. I'm writing a second book. I'm married to the love of my life. I mean, we do recover. 100%.
You got married? When did you get married? Tell us about that.
Yeah, here, hold on. I got a picture.
And tell me this, you have kids. Were you able to repair your relationship with your kids?
I just got back from seeing them last week. I just, and I sold the rights to my kids in a bank for $100 when I was strung out. That's the truth. And God restored that relationship. I just went and saw them. It's not perfect, but it's getting way better, you know.
At least you get to have a relationship with them and see them, and you're working towards, healing, and that's important. That's important. Did you give custody of them to your ex-wife? Is that who got custody?
No, yeah, and I gave up my rights. My ex-wife, she's remarried now and stuff, but it's like I owed $14,000 in back child support, and I prayed, and God dropped it out of the sky. I paid my kids $14,000. Like, I do the right thing today. I have a beautiful home. I got a car, a brand new car. And it's like we do recover. I mean, that's why God did this for me. Was the lowest. And if you read this book, you'll see I was one of as bad as you could get without dying. And he can fix things if you stay on path in recovery. And mental health, you can get better. You can use medication. If that's what helps you, use medication. But we got to fix the mental health system and the drug treatment system in our country. We have to.
It's totally broken. The treatment industry is totally broken. That's how me and Boston connected back in the day. Is he used to watch Carol Terwilliger rake me over the coals and call me a body broker and all kinds of other horrible shit. And so
I actually linked up with her for a while, and that was where everybody got to know me. But I mean, that was just me beefing with people on a personal level, and it got way out of hand. And I stopped. I left all that. That was not good for the recovery community. I had no business in that. That was not good for anybody. And I think everybody involved kind of knows that. At the end of the
day, like we're all trying to help people get sober and help change their lives, Right. And I feel like it can get to where people are going against each other because they don't like each other. Or they don't. It's like we all have a goal that is to help people not die from the disease of addiction. And so I have even tried to back off and allow people, like, just because your way of helping people is different than the way I help people doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong.
Right. I figured it out afterwards. Like, God worked on me, and I just live by this mantra now. If I'm doing everything I should be doing, all the positive things I could be working on, I wouldn't have time for none of that. And that's the truth. Yeah, because I'm writing a second book about my journey to Washington and the miracle marriage I have, and just like the rise and the transformation after this book, And I mean, I witnessed vulgar displays of power spiritually for me to become a believer. That's all in here. I mean, all the meth and demon stuff. It touches on some gang stalking stuff, but if you want a bird's eye view into the meth game, in the lens of a meth addicted cab driver, you've got to read it. It's a must read.
Dude, I am gonna read it. We're gonna have a booktube on my motherfucking channel just so we can. Do you know what they have like
on there?
Booktube is like a whole section of YouTube where people read books together, and they do like I could do an hour reading of a couple of the chapters, and people listen to it on audio book and stuff, and then they discuss it. And so I want to. I feel like your story is exciting. Like I was just a little crackhead in the fucking trap house getting high, but you were out there like driving a cab around, like meeting all these underworld, like fucking people that were a part of the meth gang. That's interesting to me.
Yes. And I mean, I was running all over the city with all different types of people and going to all different types of places. And it was like God brought me through a tour through hell, man, like through Hades. And really, I believe that he sent me undercover. And now I know how the devil operates. And I point a lot of people to find God today. And I have a worldwide ministry that goes from Australia. People in Australia are reading it. The United Kingdom, Mexico, coast to coast, the United States. It's crazy. I didn't even know they had a dope game in Australia. And they do. Australia
is a big country for methamphetamine.
Huge. I didn't know that.
Yes, I have a lot of people that follow me on this YouTube channel from Australia, and that's how they found me was through my meth videos.
Right. I really appreciate you having me on tonight.
I love you. I'm so glad that you came on, and I really, really want you to know that I appreciate you supporting me on TikTok and all the other places that you support me at, and I want to do the same thing for you. I've shared your TikTok account, and I shared the Amazon link to your book. I need to get, what's your Facebook so I can put it on in here?
I'm actually not on it anymore. I'm Boston 2% on Instagram. I'm Boston 2% on YouTube. And I'm Boston 2% on TikTok.
Boston. Let me get your Boston 2% on YouTube.
Yeah.
Because I want to. Oh, good. Oh, good. You guys, I'm going to get I'm getting his YouTube channel right now, so y'all can go follow him on YouTube. Right. And man, I'm telling you, like, I can relate so much to your stories and the experience of being in psychosis and feeling like it was really happening. And it really makes me upset that I was very fortunate, like you said, people didn't feed into my delusions. They would tell me, Nicole, you've got to go to bed. Nicole, go lay down, eat a cookie. Here's some milk. People looked out for me. And
they were better friends than I had. You were lucky because them playing into it really made me way far off. I wanted to say, too, for anybody who doesn't have the money to buy this book, if you have Amazon Prime, you can read the digital copy for free under KDP Unlimited. If you just search the Meth Bible on the Kindle version, you can flip those pages for free. And I highly encourage you to do so. Go ahead and flip the pages. 50,000 pages plus have been read already on KDP Unlimited alone. So go ahead, please. And then tell everybody to read it. Write an Amazon review, and I'm just grateful to be here. So if you've got Amazon Prime, read it free. I want you to have it.
Yeah, I got Amazon Prime, but I'm still going to order it just because I want to support you. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you so much. The first 2 chapters are like Stand By Me on weed. Like it's how addiction sucks you in and grabs you. It's fun at first. And if it wasn't fun, none of us would be doing it. It just takes you down corridors of hell later on. But I
want you to tell everybody what you're doing now, though. Boston's been working out, you guys. He struggled with his weight like I have struggled with my weight all of our lives. And that when you got that fat kid syndrome, that low self-esteem, it fucking carries into adulthood with you.
I just lost 15 pounds in the last 2 weeks. I'm lifting weights, running on the treadmill. I just shot a movie called What Happened to Austin in Florida, Jupiter, Florida. It's a docuseries, a true crime docuseries about this kid, Austin Harrop in Florida. He was on Vyvanse. He was on Adderall, abusing those drugs. His story and mine, they just found my story right before they were done shooting. And our stories line up almost parallel. He was a little younger than mine, but up until the very end, even the end, we both had a knife. I chose to surrender and chose God. I mean, he was researching how to sell his soul to the devil and all kinds of stuff. And at the end of his story, he went into a garage and he murdered a husband and wife. He stabbed a third person. And when the police came up, he was eating the husband's face. He had
I saw that.
Yeah, and he was on Dr. Phil, and I
Yes.
am in one of the episodes in that new docuseries. I'm hoping to see it on Netflix, Hulu, a major streaming at some point. But I'm in one of those episodes, and it's amazing, you know. And he was also found not guilty by reason of insanity, and he will get out someday.
Wow. So, and his was from him being on stimulants, being on drugs.
That's one theory, but they P tested him, and he came up clean. So, I mean, this is all on Court TV. If y'all want to look it up, Austin Harris. I mean, this movie is going to be very powerful. It's going to stir up a conversation nationwide about the state of our criminal justice system, about the mental health system, about drug treatment, and about the state of drugs and alcohol in our country. And it's going to be a social commentary about that, and a discussion about meth and the devil, and about pharmaceuticals and everything. It's going to be powerful.
I know who you're talking about. I saw that case here on YouTube.
Yeah, he was the frat boy cannibal killer is what they call it.
Yeah. Me and my husband, I swear to God, it was like 4 days ago that I was watching some true crime shit here on YouTube, and
I'm in that movie when it comes out. What happened to Austin? They got a TikTok. It's called What a Doc, or What Happened to Austin. Type it in. They have a TikTok. Everybody go follow that movie. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happened to Austin? Okay,
yeah. I think the TikTok's What a Doc, like what a documentary, but it's What Happened to Austin. It should pull it up. It's like a black, white, and red icon.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, follow that, because when that comes out, it's gonna hit, and it's gonna hit hard. It'll be #1 Netflix, guaranteed.
I'm so excited to watch that, dude. For real.
Me too.
Like, I find that fascinating, because I mean, that could have been me. That could have been you eating somebody like that shit. Have you ever done bath salts?
No.
Me neither.
No.
But all the people that do the bath salts end up fucking eating people's faces off and shit.
Right. I mean, but that could have been me. The exact thing. He had a major spiritual awakening just like I did. I mean, I was walking around preaching to the homeless. He was doing the same things, becoming a voice for like civil rights. It's all in this book. My story that I wrote in 2020. So this is the crazy part, is Austin Harris was being arrested for that murder right when I was going into the dope game. It's almost like I was God's answer to what the devil did in Austin Harris. That's crazy. So you got to check that movie out when it comes out. What Happened to Austin?
You're going to text me when it comes out, because you have my cell phone number.
Yeah. And everybody go follow the TikTok, What Happened to Austin. You guys don't want to miss it.
Okay, I'm super excited now. I'm so glad that you came on. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before you go?
No, just follow my TikTok. Follow the journey. It's starting to get really exciting. I'm doing all kinds of podcasts. I'll announce I'm going to fly to Vegas and do one next month. I'll post that up. You guys can all give it a spin, and we'll see y'all soon. Thank you, Nicole, from the bottom of my heart. And anytime you ever want to collaborate, just hit me up. All right?
Hell yeah.
Check out Jamie Tall. Check out her channel.
Jamie. And
Sonia Johnson.
I follow Jamie.
Yeah.
I follow Jamie. I follow Sonia. That's where I first saw the book was on one of their channels.
Yes.
And so I absolutely love both of them so much. They're amazing.
I did that video with Jamie on Halloween of last year, and it was the day that the book came out, just by chance. And it was called Meth, the Gateway to Demons. I think it's got like 20,000 spins or something. It was a good video. Yeah.
It was I saw it. Last year, before I lost my big YouTube channel, I was sharing all her videos over here on my community tab on my old channel. So I love Jamie. She's such an awesome girl. And we all need to work together in the recovery community to help each other, share each other's stories. And so that's why I don't mind having people on my channel anytime. I love hearing people's stories.
Yeah, so and when I win and you win, we all win. I mean, when we do great things individually and we come together and we do great things together, we all win. We're trying to show the world that we do recover and that drug addicts are not filthy, dirty human beings. We can get better and become amazing, productive members of society.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah.
Thank y'all. 2%ers, stand up.
I love you, man. I'll see you later, okay?
Love you too. See you soon.
Be good.
Bye-bye.
Okay, guys. What did you guys think about Boston? I told y'all would like him. His story is very powerful, but we're going to read the book, okay? So he's got me. I'm going to buy it right now. Let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to buy the book and then we're going to fucking read it together because, y'all, I love me a good meth story time. Y'all already know. Y'all already know how much I love a good meth story. Okay. So when he was talking about, his friends like feeding into his fucking delusions and stuff, like I was so fortunate, you guys, that the people I was surrounding myself with, they wouldn't do that. They would call me and say, Nicole, you've got to go to sleep. Nicole, what's wrong with you? Da, 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 da. I don't know who this is texting me over and over again. Sorry, guys. They would literally tell me, Nicole, what you're doing is dangerous. You're going to kill yourself, go to sleep, eat something, ba, 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 ba. And they would try to help me to, not be like I was. But I was always like Boston. I was always the person who was shooting all my drugs, staying up all night. I was the one who wasn't just doing it for fun. Like I lived that life because methamphetamine, I felt like it made me better. I felt like it made me more beautiful, more skinny, more interesting and everything. And that's why I continued using it for so long, because I felt like it made me better. Do you like my hair kind of like this curliness, y'all? Anyway, I could sit here and tell you guys stories about experiences I had with, hallucinations that I still to this day wonder if they were real, because of how real it was when I was going through it at that time, and the only reason why I'm sober today is because my son got taken away, and I realized that, and I know, that's why I have forgiven the girl who called CPS on me, because at the end of the day, it saved my life. And if it wasn't for her calling Child Protective Services on me and getting my child taken away, I wouldn't be alive. I wouldn't be here today trying to help all of you guys get sober, So it's really scary whenever you have experienced that. He lost his dad during his addiction, dude, because he was too high on drugs to fucking be able to function. He wasn't even there to see his dad and help his dad. That's like fucked up. And that's the kind of things that we do in active addiction, is we miss out on important moments with our families. We miss out on important moments with ourselves. We harm ourselves. We hurt other people. And it's just like not a life that you want to live. You don't want to fucking go out like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed hearing his story. He's real passionate like I am. So I knew he'd keep you guys entertained. And I have linked his book and his TikTok and his YouTube channel in the comment section over here on YouTube. And I will also link it in the comment section when I upload this video on the description and everything. So I hope you guys enjoy this live stream. I love you guys very much, and I'll see you guys later. All right. Bye.